What's up, team? Welcome to Inside SSP episode 19. I'm Coach Chris.
And Coach Natalie.
All right. So, we got a couple of topics that we want to talk about this episode. But first, we're recording this on July 5th. So, it's after July 4th. Hope everybody had a fun holiday. June for us was just I don't even know how to describe June, Nat. How would you describe June?
Well, we haven't done a podcast in like probably 6 weeks, so
yeah, there's a reason for that. Yeah,
if that tells anybody anything, is clusterfuck too unprofessional?
Yeah. It's been a wild ride. I think we learned a lot in June, and we had a lot of turbulence. So I think there's just a lot of adaptation to running through locations, getting team up to speed, some team changes, moving some stuff around. Just a lot of managing through change, I think, is the big thing, which is always turbulent and feels kind of hard and challenging. On top of that, personally, for me, I actually have every birthday and anniversary under the sun in June. It literally goes like my daughter Emmy's birthday, then my wife Nicole's birthday, then Father's Day, then our anniversary, then my birthday, and by the end of it, I'm like, fuck everybody. I do not want to see anyone. So that's kind of how I spent my July 4th, where I just kind of like we went to work out. Nicole, Emmy, and I did at West Seattle in the morning, and then we went to grab brunch. But every restaurant that we passed by had too many people, and I was like, I can't see anybody. I do not want to be in any line. I do not want to be near anybody. So we went to Met Market, grabbed some stuff, went home, and I read for a good 4 or 5 hours. It was amazing. So
love it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, right.
It feels like a lot of these things too, like we open West Seattle May 1st, and we're all excited, and that comes with its own amount of chaos, and we were prepared for that chaos. Yep. Right? And then all of these other things that were completely outside of our control and completely blindsided, and also that we were physically incapable of planning for, also happened at the same time, right? So there's a chaos that you kind of self-create, and then there's a chaos that the universe just throws at you, and you're like, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? And it felt like both of those things were happening at the same time since
big time
June 1st.
Yeah, no, it's been something. Yeah, I think, but the good thing is in June, we actually had a pretty good month business wise, which is funny, given everything else that was going on. And, so, we're largely doing the right things. It's just navigating this complexity and stuff, I think, is hard. But I think that's one of the topics that we want to talk about, which is, we unfortunately had some staff changes in June. We had a longtime coach, Coach Britt, who we both love dearly, who is still very much a part of the SSP family long term. Just make a tough decision.
Has been on this podcast a few times.
I've been on the podcast a few times, made a tough decision for her family future, and trying to decide kind of what best suits her. I know she misses us a lot, because I got a text from her that said exactly that. But I think, we have to respect that decision. But she has been here for 3.5 years, which is a long run. And she literally started as a part-time coach at Queen Anne. And I remember when we were opening Finney, she reached out and wanted to go full time, and we kind of figured out a way to make it work. But she's, she's such a good person, and really surprised me that she decided to leave. Honestly, very much respect her decision and things that she needs to do. But it was a big one. And then I think, the second piece of that was Allie hasn't coached on the floor for a long time, but she coached very early on, especially with a lot of our OG Queen Anne members. She kind of left for personal reasons as well, to kind of focus on her own mental health and kind of next steps in her life. And that's another person that's been here for 4 years, so there's a big transitions on that front, and kind of big holes to fill, which contributed to, a lot of the turbulence in June. But I think, I was talking to the team. I remember addressing the team about this a couple of weeks ago. And I honestly think, that's also what kind of separates SSP from a lot of places, is that we don't usually have a lot of these big changes. We have 3 locations now, and You know, 3.5 years, Ali 4 years, like we have people stick around for a good amount of time. And I think it's very different than a lot of the fitness industry. I actually talked to somebody, you know, who was working at the pro club who said that they hire 3 trainers in advance every month, anticipating they're going to have churn of 3 trainers. And that is wild to me, but it's also not uncommon, you know? And so I think change is hard, but I also think it's one of those things that, that because we don't have it very often makes us pretty unique.
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, obviously one of the things that like really drew me to SSP in the first place was I was like, oh, these people are hiring people who like want to stick around. You know, there's a difference in like the amount of like development that you're given as a coach. There's a difference in the amount of like investment put in you, because at SSP we're hiring folks to like be a part of our brand and our community, like hopefully for a very long time, right? And most other jobs, you're just like a part-time contractor, kind of a dime a dozen, just a plug and play, do this workout, take these clients or whatever. And there's not much community for coaches. And then you're also having to juggle, like, I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but like juggle multiple part-time jobs, like not having benefits, like not having like set schedules, things like that, that can be really challenging. And it is, I think, unfortunately, like coaches and trainers and people that work in fitness come to expect that. And a lot of times they have a hard time maybe adapting to our like style of employment, or like the expectations that we have, which are like given back or like paid back in full, right? Like we get all of these things, we get benefits, we get to go to Perform Better, we get like a community and like a real full-time job. But I think sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know that, you know? And so then they're like either, you know, scared off or have trouble adapting or whatever. And it's one of the reasons we end up hiring a lot of young coaches or people with like not maybe as much experience, because then we can adapt them into our systems and kind of how our model works. We talked about this a little bit on the last podcast of like the challenges that we face with hiring. But it also means that it really hurts when, or we understand it, but it also hurts when people leave us, right? Because I know like Chris and I have both spent a lot of time with Ali and Britt and care a lot about them as human beings. And we all know that this is the best decision for both of them. But they've also, I mean, Ali and Britt were the only other two employees other than Michelle when I started at SSP and you.
That's true.
And so it is, I know it was a hard choice for both of them, for sure. And it was hard for us too. But like you said, that's like super unique because the like relationships and the community that we're creating here, not just for members, but also like between coaches, is different.
Yeah. I also think it's unique too in the sense that, you know, these coaches leave, but very rarely do we actually lose somebody because a coach leaves, you know? And I think that is also very rare in the industry. And it goes to kind of how we kind of run the business and our programming and all that. Coaching style, which is we don't, you know, like most of the industry will pair, a client comes in, they will pair a client with a coach, and that coach is largely responsible for that person, both from a programming perspective and also coaching them every session, right? And that's not the way that we work. As you know, I actually was talking to a prospect about this the other day, because we coach as a team. You know, so we do a one-on-one assessment so that we can understand you, but then we create a program for you that can kind of be coached by any coach on the team. And the expectation is that any coach can pull your program at any time and be able to take you progressively into the next week or the next session that you're working on, because we understand kind of how the model works and how the progression should work. And so largely, even if a coach leaves, you might miss that person's personality and their energy and all of that stuff. But you know, fundamentally, your programming is going to remain constant and the same, right? Which I think is also very unique in kind of our model and the way that we do things.
Yeah, and from an employment standpoint, it's a very like team-oriented process, right? So a lot of times if trainers get paired up with specific clients or things like that, like as a trainer, you're motivated to coach as many clients as humanly possible and work as many hours as humanly possible, because that's the only way that you make more money. So you get paid hourly based on how many one-on-one clients you see or how many group fitness classes you lead or stuff like that. Can you get your client to renew? Right? Are they having a good enough experience so that they will renew with you, so they will buy more packs, so you will continue to train them in your schedule and not constantly having to like recruit new clients because of turnover? But that's not really the case at SSP. Obviously, there are certain people that end up training only with certain coaches because of schedule, but like because everybody kind of trains with any coach and none of us have our own clients and we are not paid based off of that, like it creates a much more, I think, like collaborative atmosphere. And I mean, for example, yesterday or Wednesday, we sat down and did our like wrapped up our quarter 2 goals and did our quarter 3 goals. And I think it's a really unique experience for coaches to see like across the entire business, like what's happening, how are we retaining, how many new members are we getting, or are we converting those new members, like blah, blah, blah. And that becomes even more important, but it also creates like better like overall skills than just having your specific clients and like only being able to make more money by busting your ass personally and spending as much of your hours. Like it very much promotes like a work smarter, not harder mentality, which we definitely work hard for sure. But also like there's a motivation to like grow and contribute on a level outside of just like how many hours can I squeeze out of my physical body every single day.
Yeah, totally. And I think like the flip side of that, peeling back the curtain a little bit, is sometimes, you know, like you kind of alluded to, we hire coaches and, you know, we're very transparent in our hiring process about kind of what is required from a schedule standpoint, that it's a full-time role, that you have a job on the coaching floor, but you also have some kind of job off the coaching floor. It's expected 40 hours a week. You know, you're paid in kind of a salary type style. You're not paid upon how many clients you have, how many hours on the floor you're working. So it's very different. It's very different from that standpoint than most other gyms. But I also think because of that, most people who work in the industry don't really understand how the model actually works. You know, they're like conceptually that it's a full-time role, that they get a salary, that they get benefits, that they get a retirement plan, all that kind of stuff. But when they actually get in it, sometimes they're like, oh, wait a second, this is actually a full-time role. This actually requires me to work 40 hours and it's busy. It's not like I have a ton of downtime. I've got stuff going on, you know? And I think that comes to surprise people. And we actually purposefully do something called an internship process at the beginning of any new hire, especially on the coaching hire, is because it's for that exact reason, right? Which is like, look, we know this job is a little bit different, and we're going to, one, use that internship time to onboard you into our systems and make sure you can kind of feel totally comfortable coaching within our system and understanding how that works. But also at the same time, make sure that we think you're a fit and that you think you're a fit for this situation, right? And we purposely bake that in to make sure that, like, hey, if in that period it doesn't feel like the right fit for either side, we can walk away, no hard feelings.
Yeah.
Right. And that does happen.
Yeah.
It does happen, you know? And so you might like one day see somebody that we've introduced to you who's kind of in that internship process that we just hired, and then the week later they're gone. And the reason for that is because for some reason it didn't fit, you know? And that's that period is purposely baked in to address that particular fit. Right. And it is what it is, you know, it's kind of like one of those, because we are operating differently. We have to make sure that the people that come into the job kind of fully understand what they're signing up for and also want to be here and represent the brand and do a good job, you know, because we owe it to our members that everybody who sees them on the floor is 100% bought in to what we're doing here.
And I think it's like goes to show what we're saying about the experience at SSP and the gym and the community and the coaches being different, because when we do bring in a new person, everybody's like, who's the new person? And then they're like sussing them out a little bit. And they're like, you know, because they're so used to the people that have been there, you know, and the awesome coaches that we do have that have been with us for a really long time, and have like, you know, have bought in and have like created relationships with people and seen the benefit of this style of employment. That at other gyms, it would be very normal to have new coaches, you know, popping in and out all the time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't tend to be the case for us. It feels more like we have more lately, but generally we're not hiring super frequently.
Mhm.
There are gyms that like constantly have jobs posted, constantly.
Yeah.
In fact, I think most do, because they're always trying to hire people because they always know they're going to lose somebody.
Mhm.
And that's not really the case for us. We have had a lot of hiring, mostly because we opened the new gym
Mhm.
in the last like 6 or 8 months. But I think it goes to show like the caliber of coach and the caliber of person that we're looking for too. Somebody that like is going to care about our members as much as we care about and as much as they care about us, right?
Mhm.
Like they're constantly, one of our members is a couple and they're moving to Colorado, and they gave us some really kind feedback on their way out and
Mhm.
said keep being picky about hiring.
Mhm.
They were like, keep hiring great coaches and keep your standards high. Like
Yeah.
that's what makes the difference at SSP. And I think too, from like a slightly switching gears, but from like a client perspective of like, why is this beneficial? When we talk about like, what is the best way to build strength and fitness over the long term? It's with cohesive planned out programming. And
Mhm.
so if you're at a space where you're hopping from one coach to the next coach to the next coach to the next coach, without the system that we have in place at SSP,
Mhm.
maybe that coach does a really good job of like passing off programming to the next trainer. Cause I used to inherit clients at old jobs from other coaches and stuff, and they would tell me what they were working on or whatever, but it was not near as like contiguous an experience as it would be at SSP, right? And
Yeah.
so that's why that system is important, not because we're trying to fit coaches into a box or that our way is the only way to do it or whatever, but because in our system, like with the gym, how it works, how we take care of our members, the best possible strength training and programming experience we can give for them is this sort of coach agnostic programming system, because then that client will consistently have good programming, good strength training workouts, and a consistent experience across all of the coaches at SSP, and that's how they get the best results.
Agree. Yeah.
Which at the end of the
Yeah.
day is the most important thing.
Totally. And it's funny because I talked to another gym owner recently who, and this is not a criticism of any other type of model, but a lot of gyms out there, especially training gyms, will hire mostly part-time coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, this gym does really well, over 300 members, like they're crushing it, but they have 20 coaches on staff. And he was telling me, no surprise, that scheduling and managing that schedule is a nightmare. And I was like, yeah, I have no doubt that is the biggest nightmare possible, because you have 20 part-time coaches who are all like, I only have this availability, or I'm out this day, or I'm out this day, and managing that map is awful. Like I can't even. I have a problem. I have a problem managing my own. And to be clear, like we have 12 full-time staff, maybe 10 coaches across three locations, right?
And
And
like
this guy,
3 real possible shifts a day, basically.
right? Yeah, and this guy is mapping 20 people against a single gym. And I'm just like, fuck, like,
Prayers for that guy. That
yeah,
sounds
like
awful.
talk about like that makes me want to quit the fitness industry if I had to do that every day. I mean, I would be like out of my mind. But that just gives you context, right? As far as like
Yeah.
most of these gyms, that's what they're doing, right? And I think we're just doing something a little bit different on that front. But I think going back to kind of the progressive strength training and the programming consistency that you talked about, I think there's and we've talked about this a lot. And actually, we did a segment on Fox 13, which was hilarious. By the way, I don't think we talked about this
We were on
we haven't
TV.
done
Does
a
everybody know
podcast
that?
before. Yeah, we're on TV. We're on Fox 13. Let's actually talk about this experience a little bit, because I think it's kind of funny.
It is funny.
Because people haven't heard about it. So we show up to Fox 13, and Carolyn, our PR rep, is with us, and this place is like fucking Fort Knox. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
there's a little gate on the outside. There's this like little phone you got to pick up, and the guy like was not very nice to me. He was like interrogating me, basically, like, "Who are you?" And I didn't realize that he could, like, his desk was like facing the window, so he could see us like kind of looking at the phone and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and like picking up the phone and doing all that
It's like
stuff.
in a box too. So you have to
Right?
like read the
Yeah.
directions, open the box,
Exactly.
dial the
Yep.
number, take the phone out. It's like an escape room, but
So like,
in real
I imagine this guy, he's just looking at us the entire time, waiting for us to pick up that phone, right? He's like, who the fuck are these guys? What are they doing here? And so he's like, who are you? I'm like, oh, we're just Seattle Strength and Performance. We're to do the thing. He's like, okay. Who'd you say you are? Seattle Strength and Performance? Oh, you're on this morning show? Yeah. Okay. Gates open. You know, and it was like very weird. And we go in there and we sign in. We just kind of wait in there for a little bit. The dude's armed. The dude has a fucking gun. This is
Now, if
not.
you're in this like
Yeah.
lobby area, there's like a couple couches and a TV. You can
Yeah.
sort of see into where the actual studio is, but they won't let you in. And this guard is just sitting there in his thing, like armed, like
Yeah.
staring at you. And you're
Wild.
like, can I use the restroom? And he's like,
It's over there.
so, yeah, exactly. He like stares at you for a second, and you're like, he's like, it's over there, and you're like, okay. Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Do you want to talk about the other people that came in?
Well, so then another group shows up at the same time, and all of these women are wearing like flare jeans, boots, blazers, and have like bleach blonde hair, like big poofy curly. And they also just like stand in the lobby with us for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then finally somebody comes and gets us and takes us upstairs, and they're like, are you guys like the 10 or 11 o'clock segment or whatever? And we're both like, yeah, I think they're 10:45 or 11, something like that. So they take us upstairs to this like green room. So finally we're in this green room, and they asked us, these women asked us, they were like, who are you guys? Are you guys like trainers? And we were like, yeah, we're from Seattle Strength Performance. Like we're trainers. And I had said to Carolyn earlier, I was like, who are they? They look like they're in a band. And so I said, who are you guys? And they were like, oh, we're the Cancer Cartel, which is not-for-profit group that they're all of them like double or triple cancer survivors, and they raise money for cancer warriors. And then one of the ways that they do this is by getting donations of like really high-end fashion items and then reselling them, and then they donate the money to people who are fighting cancer for their bills, for medical bills, for food, for whatever it is that those people need. Really cool work. I said, because I have never kept a thought inside my brain in my entire life, said, oh, that is so cool. We thought you guys were in a band. And these women, you would have thought that I said that they looked like Victoria's Secret models. Like, that was the nicest thing anyone had ever said to them. And they would look at each other and they were like, oh my God, like, that is so nice. You really think that? Like, blah, blah, blah. So after that, they were a huge fan of us and very chatty. But they went on and did their thing. I think the guy that was with them knew one of the anchors. It seemed like they were buddies, or like they'd been there before.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tell what he was there for. I think he was just maybe like moral support or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was like an official representative. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. And they told us we were going to have like a minute with the anchor before we went on to like review what we were going to do or whatever. Because Chris was going to talk and then I was going to do like a hands-on little demo. Only that never happened. So they come in, they like mic us up and they're like, you guys ready? And then they shove us out there. The guy's like, very nice guy. He's like, what were your names again? And you're like, I'm Chris Travis and I'm Natalie Ribble. And he's like, all right, cool. And we're on. And the wild thing about being on TV, I have been on TV one other time pre-SSP. It is so hard to tell when they are live and when they are not, because the way that these anchors like transition back and forth is like very fluid. And so as a guest, you're like, are we live? Are we not live? Like, what's happening? So anyway, we go live. This guy has no idea that I'm going to have him do exercises because we didn't get the chance to talk about it. He was a huge trooper. If you saw the segment, it was very funny. He like put his butt to the camera and then was like, I shouldn't put my butt to the camera. Like, sorry.
He did not expect to be on the ground. Yeah, that was
no.
Yeah.
No. But again, he was a trooper. We had fun. And then they kept us on. They were doing this like National Burger Day segment where everybody was like voting on their favorite burger toppings. And I could tell that Carolyn was like, guys, your mics are still live. Because like I said, it's hard to tell if they're just like shooting the shit or if they're actually on. And Chris and I are both still up there. And Carolyn was like giving us eyes like people can still hear you. And then it's over. And then they basically just like shove you out the front door.
Yep.
And you're like, what just happened?
A wild ride. Yeah, the funniest thing on that burger segment was, one, they didn't tell anybody that we were going to stay on for that burger segment.
No.
They just like kept
us. And they weren't showing us. So like on the screens, you couldn't see us.
Yeah, but they were asking us questions. Like they literally asked
Yeah.
about, you like burgers? And I was like, I love
Yeah.
burgers. And then it was like, what toppings do you want on burgers? And I was like, bacon. I don't, like, it was a very weird. It was a very weird segment, but yeah. I mean, it was quite an experience. I thought it was pretty funny. But anyways, that was a big tangent for us to talk about strength training as you
It
age.
was,
And I
but
think it's because we
it's
talked
not every
about.
day that.
That's true. It's not every day we're on TV. Uh, and we did talk about strength training as you age on that segment. And Natalie went through a couple exercises, which is great. You should watch it. But I think this is just an important topic. Like we've talked about this a number of times. And actually, it was funny. I was on, so obviously I consult with other gym owners, and I'm part of a group called Business for Unicorns. And I was on a group call the other day where, and this is like, I hate actually this particular exercise with people, which is this. We're gonna do a website and like social media audit. And I'm like, God, I hate this because I hate sitting there. And it's actually very useful because people will give you feedback based upon their experience with what they're doing, right? But it becomes very like there's things I agree with, things I disagree with, and I'm just like, oh, whatever, I can take this or leave it. But anyways, people go to their website and they're like, strength training is for everybody, and some people are very specific and there's an argument to be made about how specific you want to be in targeting your customer avatar, right? So some people will be like, I train adults or I train women 50 plus who are cancer survivors to be stronger, right? Like that's a very specific avatar. And that's like, okay, this is very specific. And the argument that a lot of people make is like the more specific you are in your avatar, the better you are will be able to drive leads, right? And people will understand kind of who you're targeting and who you're not targeting. So there's definitely validity in that. We do not do that. To be clear, like we put out into the world that strength training is for everybody. That we want to be able to train everybody. That we believe we can and are capable of training everybody. Which obviously people, every time we do this kind of like audit thing, they're always like, well, you guys are training everybody and it's not specific at all. And I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit. But anyways, that's what it is. I don't even know what I was talking about before I went on this tangent. This is
Well, I don't know. I actually don't know where you were going, but I do think the proof is in like the pudding, to say I sound like my grandmother, that like we say strength training is for everybody, but like look at the diversity of our clients, right? Like we have clients who are 9 and 10 years old who are non-athletes. We have clients who are college Division I players, and we have clients who are like in their 80s and strength training. And the coolest part about SSP to me is that they all strength train next to each other, and that everybody is in the session together, and it's not competitive or not judgmental, and everybody's excited for each other. And I think that's like the beauty of it, right? Is people think strength training, I think strength training often gets put into this very narrow box of like, oh, if you want to be a bodybuilder, or oh, if you want to be a powerlifter, oh, if you want to lift as much weight as humanly possible. But that's really not what we mean when we say strength training. Like any sort of resistance training, whether you're lifting 5-pound dumbbells or 50-pound dumbbells, like is necessary for every person at every stage of life. And I think the TV segment really heavily focused on older adults, which is really important, and a population that we work a lot with. I would argue maybe like 50% or more of our population is like in their second half of life. And it's because of the like longevity piece. And I do think this is becoming more popular in like fitness, or at least the longevity word. But not in like a weird biohacky way, but in like a, do you want to be able to climb up the stairs? Do you want to be able to carry your own groceries in from your car? Do you want to be able to lift your coffee mugs up and put them away in the cabinet? We take it for granted when we're young, but like being able to roll over and sit up and get out of bed requires muscular strength.
100%. Yeah.
And it's something that we lose as we get older if it's not trained. But the beauty of it is that it's so like, it is very, very possible to maintain and even regain. one of our members was like, I thought I was too far gone before I joined SSP. Like I was
Mhm.
62 and I thought I could never put on muscle or get stronger, that like that
Right.
ship had sailed. And so he had previously been focusing more on like yoga and stuff like that, like maintaining
Mhm.
flexibility, but joined SSP and is like literally stronger than I think he's probably ever been in his entire life
Yeah,
at
totally.
like 65 or 66.
Yeah,
So we do say strength training is for everyone, and it sounds like schmaltzy and bullshit, but it's really not.
it's not. Yeah. And I think I know where I was going with this because a lot of questions always come up like, well, what does strength training mean? Like, what, like people don't understand what strength training is. And I can see some validity in that. I think the reason we use strength training is for everybody is because there's kind of two components. One is strength training is important. As you age, it's important for everybody to be able to do. And is for everybody means that you can do it in an inclusive and safe environment
Mm-hmm.
with people in a community that supports you, right? And that's really what that tagline and that core value for us is really about and it's really for. Um, but I do think, particularly as we think about like Gen Pop and we think about, I know because I started strength training consistently, I would say like in my early 30s, that as I get older, now I'm in my 40s and 50s and 60s, that I'm going to be able to maintain my level of independence and my ability to do things for much longer than people who didn't start in their 30s, right? But that to say, like, you can still start in your 50s, you can still start in your 60s, and it's going to have a positive effect on your day to day life, as it is right now. I think there's so many people that come into SSP and after only like 6 to 8 weeks of training, they're like, wow, I feel so much stronger. I feel so much more capable, you know,
Mm-hmm.
after having done a progressive strength training program for a while. So, and I think it's something that people don't. It's becoming more. I think I see it more in kind of the cultural zeitgeist now, the importance of strength training. I feel like doctors are generally talking about it a little bit more and encouraging their clients to go do resistance training or strength training. I think it's good, it's better, it's out there. I think people are seeking it out now, but I think people really like if you're you know looking at how you're going to age into the future. And I think things like running are great, cardiovascular stuff is great, whatever, all of that stuff, continue doing that. But you really have to add strength training into the mix. You really do. It's like it's critically important to offset the loss of muscle mass, even maybe gain muscle mass, to offset the loss of bone density. And particularly like you may not think about it as I'm 41 now, I feel pretty good, but certainly when I'm 61, if I'm not training and I'm not actively doing things from a resistance standpoint, I'm going to feel it pretty hard. Like my body is not going to be able to move around and do the things that I needed to do. And certainly not when I'm 71 and certainly not when I'm 81. Right. And so I think you just have to, and people really, it starts to turn when you start to lose muscle mass naturally, maybe like 35, 40, it starts to naturally go down if you're not training anything. You won't feel that natural loss right away, right? It's slowly and incremental. You will feel it when you're 50. You will feel it when you're 60, and you're definitely going to feel it when you're 70, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think strength training becomes so important for people as they get older, and we see it every day with our clients. You
Yeah.
know?
And there's this idea that like, okay, that means everybody is like deadlifting with a barbell and like going up in weight every single week and hitting PRs all the time. And that's really not what it is. Like we do
Mm-hmm.
have clients that do that. And we have some really strong as fuck clients that participated in Pullapalooza last weekend
Mm-hmm.
and like blew me away. But also like there there is like a gradedness to this, right? Like I do say everybody should deadlift in some capacity, but what
Yeah.
that means for some people, that's like a body weight hinge or a
Mm-hmm.
hinge with a PVC pipe. For
Mm-hmm.
some people, that's an RDL with like a small kettlebell. For some people, that's a kettlebell lifted off of like 2 or 3 plates. So it's a limited
Right.
range of motion. For some
Yeah.
people, that's 600 pounds on a trap bar. Like,
Yeah.
and every single thing that exists in between. And, a lot of our older clients, they're in for 40 minutes a couple
Mm-hmm.
times a week, but like that means that they can keep doing the things that they love. They can keep golfing, they can keep hiking, they can keep, riding bikes, doing stuff like
Yep.
that. I think especially in Seattle, we have like a very active population.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that come in to the gym are saying that they're walking or hiking or biking or running or whatever, but not many of them participate in like a structured strength training program.
Yep.
And because they have this idea that like, oh, I'm getting enough exercise. And Chris was quoted on an article in Well and Good recently saying something along the lines of, any movement is better than no movement at all, right? But if I'm choosing, like, we're picking strength training. And because, like, to be able to continue to do those activities as you age, like, riding a bike is awesome. You'll have great cardiovascular health, great, like, respiratory health, super important. But to be able to keep doing that, your body has to be strong. Your joints and tendons have to be trained. Your muscles have to be strong. And it doesn't quite work the other way around. Like riding a bike is not going to help you be able to carry your groceries or get up and down out of a chair or things like that. So if I'm picking one thing for you to like spend your money on, for you to spend your time on, like in the fitness world, I just truly in my heart of hearts believe that like resistance training and smart progressive resistance training is like it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that was such a great quote too, and Well and Good.
You want to tell them?
There's an insider piece here, which is funny, which is, our PR agency was, links us up with publications quite frequently, and it was a pretty busy June, and and there was a ask to do a article in Well and Good. And I didn't get around to it, and Nat and Sam also raised her hand and was like, "Hey, we can do this, right?" And I didn't even think anything of it. You submitted everything and confirmed it, and it was you going back and forth with the PR agency, and then the article drops, and they send it over, and they're like, "Hey, Chris was quoted in this article doing this." And I read the article, and I was like, "I literally didn't
write any of this."
I didn't write any of this." And it's just funny. I mean, it's a funny thing. Like, it's because Nat was like the ghostwriter for me for that article. I mean, like literally everything in the article that I'm quoted on, that Chris Travis quoted on. And there's like big fucking blocks of text. It's like Chris Travis.
I know. I didn't realize I had so much power in that situation either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could have said anything. Literally anything attributed to Chris Travis, and it would have gone out into the world. So,
a lot of trust right here.
So anyways, we're I'm making amends for that one at some point, just to make sure Nat gets her due.
I'm really not worried about it at all. It was just very funny.
It was a very funny moment when we both realized, like, wait a second, what's going on with this article?
I was like, Chris, you sound smarter than you've ever sounded. That's crazy.
So incredibly smart. The best quotes ever. Amazing.
Funny.
Okay. And then, I don't even know where I was going with that because it was such a funny aside. Anyways, it's important. Also, I know where I was going. The one point I did want to make, because we get this question very often, which is like, well, isn't cardio important? And I was like, sure. I'm not saying cardio is not important. Cardiovascular health is super important, right? There's huge benefits to having great cardiovascular health. And there's plenty of science linked to lower risk of diseases and all of that kind of stuff. So we're not saying like, do not do cardio. Like, by all means, do cardio if you want to, but please just don't do cardio and not strength training.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can get away with that. Versus, I think if you just made time for strength training and didn't do cardio, you might be in a better spot. Now, that's just a personal opinion. But I think if you were to prioritize one over the other, I would prioritize strength training, because I think the benefits of strength training long term, you're still going to get some kind of cardiovascular effect when you're strength training as well, some kind of metabolic effect. And ultimately, the benefits of that are going to help you longer term as you increase your lifespan.
I agree. Mic drop.
Done.
Which, like, maybe a hot take. And again, like, nobody ever is saying that, like, cardio is bad or strength. Like, I feel like nobody in their right mind in the fitness industry is telling you not to do cardio or not to lift weights. But the reality is most people are doing neither. And so if you can go from doing neither to doing both, awesome. Live your best life. I do both. You do both. Like, that's great. Yep. But for most people, we need a little bit of a slower barrier or a slower ramp into an exercise plan, right? Most people don't like exercise. They don't think it's fun. They don't have the bolt loose in their head that we have that makes
Mm-hmm.
us actually enjoy this. And so I do think strength training, although has the like reputation of being intimidating, can also be like a really great way to get started. You tend to see progress quickly in
Uh-huh.
like being able to go higher in weights and being able to do movements before that you couldn't do. And any sign of progress or success is going to fuel that motivation fire, right?
Totally.
And like keep you coming back to it. And like Chris said, like the health benefits that you're going to get in the short term are going to be so much more from that. And I just think it's more fun.
Yeah, totally.
So we tend to do things that are more fun and stick with them.
I agree. All right, let's call it there. You know why? Because I'm also upstairs at Finney, and it's like 80 plus degrees outside, and it's hot as shit up here. I am like sweating.
You're
Crazy.
glowing.
I gotta go downstairs. Anyways, fun
All right.
podcast.
Well, episode 19. We got to come up with something good for episode 20.
Oh yeah, big one. I like it.
Let us
All right,
know
well,
what you guys want to hear.
yeah, in the comments. Bye
Bye,
bye.
team.